score really low. That's a rolling joke. Thanks, Wilmer. Mr. Mayor, Ed Fitch, our paths have crossed quite a bit. Thank you for all the service that you do for the community and stepping up. So with that, Ed Fitch, welcome. Thank you. If you want to hold that, you can speak into it that way.
Actually, I was going to prefer just sitting down and talking like in a circle, but this is a little impromptu, so I'll just kind of go through a lot of different issues kind of randomly. It's been 9 months now since we started with the new council. I'll say this, this council is the most active one I've ever seen in 40 plus years of being here. They've been very involved in a lot of issues. They have a lot of passion. Cass Swicker is doing a great job as the council president. And we're kind of trying to meet as well as we can all the challenges that we've kind of been faced with. And let me first start out with homelessness. Over the past 9 months, we worked very hard to get a grant of $975,000 from the governor's fund. We're successful in doing that this summer. And now Oasis is going to become a reality by Christmas. And that's the first step, but it's certainly not the finish line. We're also working with Mountain View Fellowship on doing a below market rate RV place just north of Oasis, so that people who are trying to get into housing have a good kind of ladder step to get up to permanent housing. But most, I guess the biggest challenge we have is, as you know, we have a lot of homeless situation on northeast Redmond, out there by Medline and other businesses. We have the challenge of some court cases and state law that we have to have a site that these people can go to before we can require them to get off the street there. So we're working with Deschutes County. They have 45 acres adjacent to Oasis. We're working really hard to set that up as a managed camp so that we can move those people off the street in northeast Redmond and also move the people who are on the county land immediately east of 17th Street over to that site, so it's in a managed camp situation. And that makes a world of difference because you'll have trash situation, you'll have porta potties, you'll have water, and so to make it semi-livable in terms of, people aren't going to dumping their stuff out. It'll also be managed so it will lessen the fire situation that we've encountered a couple times over in that northeast side. So it's a lot of work. I'm hoping by this time next year all of that will be completed and we'll have at least a fairly good handle on the homeless situation in Redmond. The other one is affordable housing, and we are developing an affordable housing site in northeast Redmond called North Point. It's going to be 500 units, 250 of which will be on an affordable rate based on a certain percentage of income. And that's a first step, but it's certainly not the final step. What's happening over the next year, I believe, will be a trade between the Department of State Lands and Deschutes County. What that will mean is the county will be giving the Department of State Lands about 67 acres next to 17th Street. And in return, Deschutes County is going to receive a similar amount of acreage just south of the fairgrounds, which will be incorporated into the fairgrounds. At that point, the fairgrounds is going to be the second largest fairgrounds in the United States, which is interesting for this town. But more importantly, on the land that Department of State Lands is going to get, I talked to Governor Kotek about doing some master planning on there so that we can have some more affordable housing in that location, because it'll be really close to where a lot of people work on the northeast side, north and west of the airport. And she seems very amenable to that, so we'll be working on that over the next year, hopefully. The other thing that we're working on is transportation. And as you may have seen in the paper, we're spending $30 million, which is a significant amount, obviously, to build an east side alternative route to Highway 97. That'll go from Airport Way to Maple. It'll cut through the old Juniper Golf Course. It'll open that whole area, about 220 acres, up to development. But it'll also provide an alternate route off of 97 on the entire east side. We have a long-range plan, and I hope it's not too long, to extend 19th Street by the golf course here, south, and then connect into Highway 97 somewhere around McVeigh. Not Quarry. I think McVeigh would be an excellent choice because it's about a third to a quarter the length of the route to Quarry and would be about that much less expensive. We met with ODOT a couple weeks ago. They're not going to have any funding for that project, so getting the money for it will be challenging. But it's absolutely necessary for three reasons. One is the fairgrounds. It just doesn't function without that southern entrance. The second is the airport. We're probably soon to be in the next few years the second busiest airport in Oregon. And the numbers keep going up geometrically. We're going to be spending $150 million on an expansion of the airport in the next few years. And it's actually going to have jetways out to the planes, so you don't have to freeze your tail off in the middle of winter. But it's another significant investment in a regional asset. And so when you look at Redmond, yes, it's a city of 40,000, but it's really a regional city when you look at the fairgrounds, you look at the airport, you look at the 700 acres of industrial land that we have south of Juniper here. We're only one of 2 or 3 cities in the state that have that. And we also have Core 3. Now, Core 3 is 300 acres next to basically Oasis in that area north of the airport and north of the Forest Service. And it's going to be designated as a site for emergency training for police, fire, anyone who's involved in emergency responses. It's also going to be a site for any catastrophe, whether it's wildfires, whether it's a cascading event in Western Oregon. But between the three of them, the fairgrounds, the airport, and Core 3, Redmond will be the focus of every large catastrophe in Oregon. So this city is very big for its bridges in terms of being a regional and even statewide facility. And in talking with the governor, she's very cognizant of the unique role that Redmond has, not only in our region, but also for the state. So on those three fronts, we've been making a lot of progress. Now, we have a lot of challenges that have been thrown our way. Last December, we applied for a new groundwater permit with the State Water Resources Department. And this summer, they told us they were going to deny it. And they have been denying every permit for groundwater, not only here in Central Oregon, but almost statewide. So why are they doing that? Well, there has been a decrease in the elevation of the aquifer because of the drought and because of the piping of the canals. So, for one example, a well by Pine Nursery in the last few years has dropped 50 feet in terms of the elevation of the aquifer. Now, the Deschutes aquifer is unique. It's 1,300 feet deep under Redmond. So, a drop of 50 feet in an aquifer that's only 250 feet or 300 feet is really significant. A drop of 50 feet in Deschutes County, although of concern, is nowhere near that kind of significance. So last Thursday, Josh Wedding, who's head of our water department, and I went to Burns to testify before the Water Commission. We also have a lot of the key legislators involved. And the issue is this: cities have to have water. And they have to have certainty that they're going to have availability of water. Under the statewide planning goals, we have to plan for 20 years to have the necessary inventory for housing, for commercial, for industrial. And without that certainty of water, that would be impossible. Also, Governor Kotek, as you may recall in January, said her number one goal was to add thousands of houses in Oregon to meet the needs for affordable housing, because we have a significant housing shortage, not only here, but also statewide. So when I brought this up to the governor, she had not heard of Water Resources denying it and did not seem really particularly pleased with that. This week, we've contacted a number of legislators as well as the governor's office. I don't think the Water Resources Commission, from my read of their body language last week, is really interested in cutting cities off from water. Now, when you look at water in this basin, cities, all the cities, Madras, Sisters, Prineville, Redmond, Bend, Lapine, we only take up about 3% of the total water that's drawn from this aquifer. So we draw less water than there is a recharge every year from the mountains. So I think in the long run we'll be successful, but it's obviously an intense battle that we have to deal with Water Resources. Water Watch thinks we should get denied. Everybody should get denied. And so it's just going to be a battle going forward. Yes?
Do you guys have actual surveys showing this drop in groundwater? Because from what I've understood, it's all pretty much case by case. People are, when you're talking about a pine nursery, that's all areas that they stopped and piped everything, got rid of the groundwater. Those are false aquifers that they were tapped into that never were true aquifers. And they'd have water running during the summer when they shouldn't, and in the winter they had no water. And this is true of so many of these little drilled wells that were shallow that everybody's like, oh, we're losing our water. No, your neighbor got rid of his irrigation, and you were drinking his dirty irrigation water, by the way. And this is true. And they're all acting like we need to restrict our water when I haven't seen anybody that's away from irrigation in the aquifer have any level of drop in their water.
And that's true. And that's what we've told them. When you look at the wells that have been failing, they're all the wells that were dug in the early 70s, and they go down about 200, 250 feet.
They weren't even in the aquifer.
Yeah.
Well, there was some level of a false aquifer, because a lot of it was from rain and from the pipe or the canals. But they weren't the real aquifer that's recharged by coming off the mountains every spring. It's still a problem. I mean, people are having to drill their wells. This legislature allocated some monies for that assistance, but it's really a pittance of the amount that's needed. Where we're at probably about, on average, 800 feet deep on our wells. And if you drive down Black Butte into the canyon, you'll see the next well that's going online, and that's well number 9, right there by the dog park. That's not going to get affected by this permit, but in the future, if we were denied water, it would be a significant problem. We could survive for a while. You'd have to have more stringent conservation, but bricks in the toilet, for example. But I think we'll be successful, and I think what the avenue we're going to take is cities have to get water. Cities have to show that they're doing the appropriate level of stewardship through conservation, through all those kinds of measures. And we've done most of them already. Now, one that will probably come up, will be a little controversial, would be a tiered rate system, where you'll have a base of what you ordinarily use. Once you go over that, the rate will be higher, and once you go over that, there'll be a kind of like a really high rate. Now, most households are not going to fall into the upper 2 rates. It would be mostly commercial or industrial. School district is probably our biggest water user. Right now, we're looking at turfing the soccer field down at Spud Bowl. That's going to cost an additional $300,000 or so, but it'll save 20 million gallons of water a year. Yes?
Have you guys looked at what the NFL is doing with going away from turf because of the safety with knees and legs and everything? The damage to the children that'll play on that is going to be far worse than any water you use.
Thank you.
You guys
No, we
can
haven't
talk
looked at that.
It's not a good thing.
Well, the school district did Jaguar Fields. They did artificial turf there. I don't know the science of the artificial
Look
turf.
into it.
But that's what they did. Their water bill went down dramatically.
Water or kids' knees.
All right.
Look at the NFLPA, look into it. I'm
All right.
serious.
Hold on now, hold on.
No, it's okay. I'm glad you brought that up. So anyway, water's a big issue. And then I'll just say this. The city's been busier than I think they've ever been. Right now, what we're looking at is they're going to finish up this West Area Plan that was started about a year ago. But when they complete that, what I think I and other members of the council have looked at is the future growth of Redmond being in northeast Redmond, and for a variety of reasons. One, there's no agricultural fields there, like there is west of Helmholtz. Two, like Bend, the farther you push west, the more stress you put on transportation, coming down Antler, coming down Evergreen, coming down Highland. If you go on Highland now, you can see that back up from 19th all the way to 27th Street. Regarding Highland, we did talk to ODOT about expanding that to 4-lane from the high school all the way out to at least first 35th Street and then ultimately to Helmholtz. Again,
I vote for all the way to 67.
35th will even be a stretch for us.
I
I mean, literally, they have no money. We just got an email from ODOT this morning that they are going to plow the highways less beginning this year. So they're telling everyone, make sure you have an emergency kit in your car. I mean, it is unbelievable how broke they are.
What are they saying about salting? Are they gonna start bringing salting everywhere to decrease costs? Because I'm hearing a lot of this.
I've not heard salting yet, and I hope they don't do it because it really does damage to your car.
Oh, it's terrible what it does to resale of, if you look at vehicles on the east coast of the United States, there's just no resale because they're all eaten alive.
No, I grew up in Chicago. Everything got rusted out
Yeah.
on the bottom. So, anyway, Highland's going to be an interesting challenge. For example, I think across from the Baptist church, that open field there. Well, the person who owns it actually got an offer of $11 million on it.
Holy shit.
ODOT shot it down. No access. So we're going to work with ODOT and our traffic engineers to figure out a way that they could dedicate, right away on that north side. Somehow we got to get them access and get that property productive. So there's just a lot of challenges with ODOT. Now when you look at South Highway 97, right now they're in the design phase for improvements on 97, but they have no money. So 2 years in a row now they've gone out for a $40 million grant for 97. 2 years in a row that's failed. They seem optimistic that they'll be successful this October or November when they go out again. But the road's just falling apart. And it's the biggest problem they have on 97 in terms of the state of the road, that is the physical state of the road. And there's really very little base under it. I mean, they're going to have to reconstruct the entire road from Veterans all the way down to Airport Way. And it's about $40 million. So, more challenges with ODOT. And I do think you'll see a lot more focus on the northeast side of Redmond. And there's two reasons for that. One is, again, it gets away from the agricultural land because there really isn't any up there. Two, with this east side alternative, there'd be a much better transportation system up there. Three, most of the land in northeast Redmond is owned by the public. The county has 1,000 acres up there. Department of State Lands will have about 70 acres. So when you look at that, and then I think Hayden has most of the rest, where COID currently is the owner. And I think Hayden's, one of his companies is buying that. So with that public land, it really gives us a lot of opportunities to master plan that. So you know where your school should be, your park should be, everything, commercial center. So it's just not haphazard. It's thought out in a kind of logical way. So that's the exciting part of Northeast Redmond. Now, I do tend to make everyone at the city nervous when I say we should do a couple of tunnels under the highway and the railroad at Black Butte and Evergreen, but we'll see. I'm sure I won't be alive when that happens. But no, if we're going to be a town of 75,000 in, say, 20 years or 30 years, you got to start thinking about 75,000 people and what that means and how is that going to work functionally. We're not going to be not using cars. We still will be using cars here in Central Oregon. So you have to have a transportation system that's going to function where you have better interconnection between both sides of Redmond, both the east side and the west side. And there's got to be more grade separated crossings. So those are kind of things, we're having some initial discussions on. But again, some of these are short range, some of these are long range. But at the end of the day, if you don't talk about these things, if you don't bring them up and see what the pros and cons are of each, you'll never get anywhere. And that's really what the beauty of this council is we'll talk about anything. There's nothing off the table. Now, a couple of the, I'll call it, more publicized issues, which are really not huge issues for the city in terms of what cities traditionally do in terms of streets, sewer, water, etc. Marijuana, for example. That's going to go out for a vote in May. That will be accompanied by some fairly stringent time, place, and manner. So if it was approved, it's not going to be everywhere. Probably more on North 97, South 97, and maybe on the east side. We're also looking at doing a charter amendment, possibly in May. And the issues on that would be this. One, nepotism, that you cannot have people of the same family on the council at the same time. Two, term limits. We're looking at possibly 8 years. Now, it doesn't mean you can't serve again. You just have to go off. You can run again later. Some other little cleanup stuff, but those are the two main ones, dealing with the council and how it should be, you can qualify for it and then how long you can serve.
Can you enact that in Congress too?
Seems like they're doing it themselves.
They are too.
Would the 8 years apply for the mayor too?
Yes. The other thing was changing the mayor from 2 years to 4 years, but that won't be effective for me. So, but in the future, I think that would make more sense. So with that, any questions you guys have? Gary?
I'm on the Parks Committee with Maria, and we're talking about the Spud Bowl, well, I think Thursday. And what Noah said, I'll send her an email so we can have some facts for our Thursday meeting.
I'm glad you brought that up. Because
I bring it up because I have a kid playing football. I don't need his knee blown out because everybody thinks they're saving water and saving the planet, when in fact they're just hurting my children.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's all I'm saying.
No, that's a good point.
But it was interesting, she told us that if they were to astroturf the Spud Bowl, that's enough water for 120 homes.
Yeah, I mean, I think both issues should be looked at, but
I
that's
agree
the
with
first I
Noah.
heard about the physical issues.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Yes.
I don't know if anybody's ever been to the city of Scampoose, but I hope that you keep that in mind as you develop this plan for 97, because it's really needed. Otherwise, you're going to end up with 97 being one set of stoplights all the way through the city. So I know it's controversial, but you need to get around that, and I appreciate you doing that.
So the long-range plan I've been advocating is the Beltway in Redmond. They would start at McVeigh, and at McVeigh you can go either way. You can go over to Helmholtz and Canal, and east you would go over to the extension of 19th Street and Airport Way, and then connect back up at O'Neill Junction. There's a lot of challenges there, but I think it would serve the city well. That's what Bend is missing dramatically, you know, when you look at their transportation. Yeah, I don't know Scappoose, but I'll take a look at it. Yes, Barb.
Could you just comment on maybe your assessment of how the council gets along and how well you work together, or maybe some of the successes and challenges, both?
Well, compared to last year, it's like a walk in the park. No, the council gets along very well. You know, you got 7 personalities, obviously, but no, there's a commitment. Everybody kind of likes each other. Everybody's respectful of each other, and everyone wants to jump in and help. And so it's really been fantastic, actually.
Who crafted the stuff, I mean, and I'm not in disagreement, but the term limits, anti-nepotism, where did they get crafted from? The community or from the
well, the term limit has been bandied around for some time. The nepotism really arose because of the situation with George and Chrisana. That, you know, almost a third of the council in one household is probably not a good idea. But it's up to the voters. I mean, those have been what's been requested to put in a charter amendment.
Where are we with the new water treatment center?
Water treatment center.
You mean sewer treatment? Sewer treatment, yeah.
That's making progress. We got through the land use approval. There was an appeal, but that appeal now has been withdrawn for the wetland complex north of town. Again, another big financial challenge. We're going to be borrowing $70 million from DEQ at about a 2% interest, but it's still a lot of money. And between
that's like a 40-year fix. You talk about 20
or more,
yeah,
or more. If you just tried to do the plant, it would maybe be a 10-year fix. So the plant will go away. That's down in the canyon. Not really knowing all the science of it, but it'll be like Prineville's wetlands complex with the golf courses there.
Well, we actually moved here in 2017 to get out of the Cascadian zone because Redmond was the place to go. That's what the officials in Portland were saying. And of course, I was interested in your saying about the planning ahead and all airport and the new zone and things. What can the community do, or will the community be called upon to participate in that?
Well, that's a good idea. Core 3 is really at its embryonic stage.
Right.
Not even a shovel has been turned there yet. They do have about, I think, $10 to $15 million. So next year we're going to be putting in 21st Street to service Oasis, the RV, the 45 acres, but also Core 3. And that'll be the first step. I would see Core 3 as, you know, a 15 to 20 year project in terms of getting it built out. It'll take time. And it depends on the flow of money from like the feds, FEMA's interested in it, and the state. But it'll take time. And but we have enough money to start. And you got the land identified. Hopefully there won't be any Cascadia during our lifetimes, but you never know. Carl?
What does the city have planned where the sewage treatment plant is now?
It's still in an embryonic stage as to what we should do there. Discussing it in parks, I think, yeah. So it's really just getting ideas on what makes sense to do there, and it'll be a process over maybe 1, 2, even 3 years on what to do with that site.
You mentioned our airport being the second biggest here.
Not yet, but
Potentially.
will be.
Does that mean we're going to need to like do the longer runways?
Yes, but that's again out there. The only reason for the longer runways is because if you want to bring in larger aircraft with fully weighted, for example, back in, I think it was 84, Air Force One came in. So it can take the 747s, but it just depends on the load of the airplane. Now, The current plan was to extend the runway south, basically towards the fairgrounds in Juniper. But now we're talking about maybe going north and moving Highway 126 to Evergreen, going straight out. Because of the topography, it might be a lot cheaper to do the runway that way. But those are really kind of embryonic discussions. Okay, I gotta head to court.
Right. We're gonna get a picture for you. Here, we'll just do it right
Yeah,
here.
all right.
Little picture or token of our appreciation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Mr. Mayor, thank you for that. Thank you for the questions. Hopefully see all of you tonight, and Michelle will lead you well from here. Thank you.